Jason Davis, of course, is the county chair. Just got elected in November by overwhelming margin over Carl Persis, the Democrat. And there was some controversy. Once again, he was in the News Journal in a negative light for making a pitch for the Lusner brothers, Ron Lusner's brother, for they run a campground, own a campground at the Cabbage Patch in Sam Sula, where of course we have one of the signature Bike Week events.
Yes.
Cabbage Patch Wrestling, Coleslaw Wrestling, which draws, I would say that event alone draws 20 to 30,000 bikers.
Probably.
I've been there every year for 15 years, and it never ceases to amaze me, the color and the glamour of raunchiness, but it's one of those events that definitely draws the public's interest. Stan, he appeared before a county board that had to grant a permit approval, and it was expected to pass, but he was there and he explained to me that he spoke up because he felt somebody from the public should be saying something to show support. But he said he was representing himself as a private citizen. What about that? There was a little bit of controversy in the News Journal about that.
Well, I believe when Jason was elected county chair, he did not give up his right to free speech, did not give up his rights as a citizen or in any way restrict them. As long as he makes it clear that he is appearing and speaking in his private capacity, and he makes no effort whatever to influence, as county chairman, any decision which might be taken by this board or any other board, he has the same right as any other citizen to make an appearance and make a statement. He made his private status very clear before the board. As I understand it, there would have been no question that the permit to conduct this coleslaw wrestling would have been renewed anyway. And Jason, in any case, is a biker. He enjoys motorcycle riding and motorcycle activities. He has a great number of friends in the biker community, and he has supported them for years and years as a private individual. It would be almost an abandonment of his personal principles were he not to stand up for something like this as a private citizen. And you have to keep in mind that Jason is not your average politician.
And that's what I want to go to Dana with now. Dana, like Stan is saying, he's not your average politician, he's not your typical politician, actually. He's a very passionate guy about, if something's good, he wants to make sure that that's emphasized. What about the issue, though, if you're a county council, you're the county chair. You're the county chair 24/7, but that doesn't mean you give up your rights to free speech.
Exactly. I mean, anyone who's involved in politics, sometimes just like on the Republican side, you might be an officer with the Republican Party of Florida or something like that, but people might have their personal support and say, I, as Joe Public, am supporting this candidate or whatnot, because you don't support one candidate over the other with your title. So why can't our county chair do the same and say, I, speaking as Joe Public, saying, I support this. Now, I have never seen coleslaw wrestling. I don't intend to ever see coleslaw wrestling, because the closest thing to coleslaw I'm getting is probably 4th of July, so picnic. But I do believe that the bikers enjoy their coleslaw wrestling, so let them have it. And if Jason believes in it as a Joe Public, Joe citizen, then why not let him speak on it?
I want to think also, yeah, Henry, that Jason, unlike a lot of politicians, he's not a political calculator. What Jason is a good man whose heart is in the right place, and he's a man of the people. He's not a man of politics.
Wow.
What he does is he goes out and he identifies in his heart and in his policies with what the people want. And the people do want coleslaw wrestling at the Cabbage Patch during Bike Week. And given that Bike Week and Oktoberfest are both Biketoberfest are both major contributors to the local economy, it seems to me that we should do whatever is appropriate, whatever we can do to support that. The whole city of Daytona, the whole of Volusia County benefits from it. It's something we've pushed for years, and all Jason is doing is stepping up and saying yes, and I support it too. Personally, I support it.
Jason told me that he made it clear when he spoke to the News Journal reporter that he said, look, this is something I believe in. It's important to emphasize it. Yes, the vote would have gone through, but I want them to see that there is public support for this. And if there isn't somebody from the public here, that doesn't mean you don't support it, but I want them to hear, because I am a representative of the public. I was voted. And he said he also made it clear that he went to see a lawyer, a private attorney, to get advice for legal purposes, and that it was made clear to him that should he come before a vote of the county council, let's say there was an appeal, let's say the thing was denied, and that would eventually go to the county council for final approval or to uphold what the board, the lower board said, he would recuse himself. But see, that wasn't reported in the newspaper because, as we've learned from the past, after he won overwhelmingly, his words are twisted to make him look bad.
Well,
and so I'm surprised that he even talks to them still.
It does somehow seem like the News Journal thinks that Jason has stole their lollipop, but still, in fairness, they did consult a professional ethicist.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up.
And the ethicist said
two
absolutely
ethics
nothing
experts
wrong
said,
with Jason doing that.
So it kind of made the story stupid, but...
Well, they also consulted a couple of Democratic politicians.
Well, that's what I was going to get to next week.
Jason, but that's a partisan issue. That's a different
thing. So I'd like
thing.
to ask Dana as the last word on this topic. Why is the News Journal, of all people, getting... I could understand Pat Northey. She's on the council. And she's a Democrat. So that gives you that elasticity of antagonism for the readers. And that's good. It's good to have that sort of back and forth. But why Frank Bruno? Haven't we had enough?
Yes, I think we had enough.
I mean, he's still going to all the chicken dinner events. I saw him at the Tom Stead funeral. I've seen him at the MLK dinner. I've seen him at the dinner for John Johnson at Embry Riddle when he was honored. Everywhere you go. I saw him at the press conference at the Speedway. He was the only private person there who didn't have some business or elected connection to the Speedway in terms of this whole issue. Stan, what about Frank Bruno? Why doesn't he just go away like
I've never met Mr. Bruno, so I can't...
You sat next to him at a dinner.
Yeah, but we didn't
That wasn't
speak.
very comfortable, was it?
Well, we didn't speak, but that's not the point. I can't speak to what drives him personally, but I can say that I have seen a number of other people at much higher levels in Washington and elsewhere who had extensive and distinguished careers and whose careers came to an end and somehow they couldn't cut the umbilical cord. They kept coming back and hanging around, and some of them made efforts to rebuild their careers in that sense. Sometimes they succeeded and sometimes they didn't. But it's just that when you've been at a thing long enough and you've gotten used to all the accolades and the praise and the honors and so forth, you begin somehow sometimes to get the idea that those things are intended for you personally, and not for the position that you hold.
But 20 years as an elected official. They even have the chambers named after him, the Frank T. Bruno Jr. County Council Chambers. And if you read the agenda, every single item refers to the Frank T. Bruno Jr. County Council Chambers. When is enough enough?
I know, but do you think he might think his career is not yet over and is trying to, like, not yet cut the umbilical cord because he's still hopeful for the future?
Well, that brings us to segment 3. We must jump right into it. In 2 years, Joyce Cusack's seat will be up.
Yes.
She's the at-large, she holds the at-large seat on the county council, 7-member council. Joyce is not sure whether she's going to re-up again. You know, age is creeping up, health is creeping up, and she's a veteran. She's been around a long time in politics as a former state house representative, and of course, when she ran and won in 2009, she won convincingly. Very popular woman. Not everybody likes her politics, obviously, but I see her as a little more moderate than some of the other Democrats that have been on the council. Do you think that Frank Bruno's waiting and chomping at the bit to get her a seat?
I think Frank Bruno, after 20 years as Stanford, he can't quite give up the ghost and is still thinking, look at me, and since he didn't get the one position he wants, he figures maybe he can just slide right back into the county council.
Well, I agree that Ms. Cusack has had a distinguished career. She served honorably and well. And you're right, I don't always agree with her politics, and that's not the point.
Right.
She is both, apart from being a Democrat, she's both a woman and an African American. And looking to who should fill her seat in the future, I think it's very important that an African American, I don't want to say the slot should be reserved for, because that's not the right terminology, but I think it's very important that we have an elected African American on the county council. And I hope that Ms. Cusack would be replaced by an African American, well, obviously a black African American.
Let's just cut to the
a Republican African American.
Let's just cut to the chase here. Joyce Cusack made it very clear to me when I spoke to her after Thursday's county council meeting, or during the lunch break rather, that if Frank Bruno thinks she's going to just step aside so he can reclaim his glory, or Pat Northey, who's term limited now, this is Pat's last run representing Deltona, and she was a former at-large member as well, and I believe a former county chairwoman. Maybe not the chair, but,
I don't think so.
But at large. Joyce is very clear to me that if either of them wants to throw the name in, if there isn't a replacement that is an African American or another minority, she will run again, because she feels that there hadn't been anybody in the position for 20 years. And let's face it, this county, as white and rich in tradition as it's been in terms of being homogeneous, is becoming a lot more diverse. And, you know, Deltona has a mixed, strong Hispanic population, like you said. It's David Santiago in the legislature now.
State legislator from the Deltona area.
You've got, you've got African American population in Smyrna Beach. Daytona Beach is almost 50% black. It's growing. The population is strong. We have a black mayor in Derek Henry in Daytona Beach, very progressive. So I would think that seat would be something that would draw the interest of, what are some candidates out there? Scan, Horace Anderson?
Well, I think Horace would do a fine job. I think we have Webster Barnaby over in the southwestern part of the county.
Deltona City Commissioner, brand new.
Yeah.
And he's very personable, and I think, there's a reason.
A religious man?
Exactly, and there's a reason for term limits. So why do we have, like, Pat Northey and Frank Bruno? Why I'm just going to switch to a different position and still serve them?
Well, I always found it kind of hypocritical that they have these term limits, but they don't prevent them from jumping from one seat to another.
Well, the county charter just wasn't really carefully drafted. I believe, I'm not 100% certain about this, but I believe that was the intent originally, that they shouldn't be able to shift from the one position to the other and continue a lifetime career in the county council. But the way in which it's drafted, it does make that possible. It's not illegal.
Maybe that's something that's in point groups.
Maybe when the charter is reviewed, that should be changed, but that's an issue for down the road.
Now, I think it should be noted that Frank T. Bruno Jr. did a lot of great things for the county. And his leadership, he had some strong skills, and he got a lot of things accomplished. But there are a lot of things that aren't very good, like Sunrail, and the expenses that come with that. Which brings us into our next segment, CRAs. There was supposed to be a frank discussion describing what blight is. Bricks and mortar, or feet on the street. For example, New Smyrna Beach, hiring somebody to write press releases and put up a Facebook page for Do the Loop. Come to New Smyrna Beach and go to all our weekend activities. Do the Loop just means CRA district. I don't know why you have to pay somebody to have this kind of phony thing, except it creates more jobs for the inner circle. Stan, what about the CRAs in terms of, Mr. Deneen, the county chair, was supposed to give them a strong sense of what CRAs, where they're going, and we were under the impression that they'd be capped at like 10 years. Now it's 20 years. His rationale was, well, 10 years may not be enough, but after 10 years we can revisit. And if you're bonding and you're borrowing, it's kind of hard to take away the final 10 years, right? I mean,
if you obviously,
that's probably some of the CRAs are replaced.
If you have committed to a 20-year bond, I don't see how you can take away the final 10 years without renegotiating the bond or paying it off up front or something like this. It's a bit of a problem, and it makes it less likely that the terms of the bond will be changed. But, you know, I think that the CRAs can be demonstrated to have done quite a bit of good in the county in those areas where the money was expended properly for the purposes intended. My criticism of the CRAs really is that they, the money is gathered up, doesn't come from the county, but the money is provided by the county, and it's given to municipalities to do whatever has been agreed upon within an area which they have agreed is blighted, without, as you say, defining the term blight. And then after that, nobody pays any attention to what happens to the money. And so in some cases, the money has been spent to do a fine job of redeveloping that blighted area. In other cases, it's gone for purposes which cannot by any stretch of the imagination be regarded as the rectification of blight. And so I think that as the money is provided by the county, it should be provided with a certain amount of guideline as to how the money has been spent. The county doesn't need to conduct daily oversight. I mean, it is for the municipality to expend the money and to make certain that that which it is expended on is what it was intended for. But after a certain point, perhaps on an annual basis or a biannual basis, there should be an accounting. And the county should be able to be sure and to be able to reassure the state that these monies are spent for the purposes intended. Otherwise, somehow parts of them tend to get drained off for other things.